Every imaging vendor talks about AI and efficiency and being patient-centered, but results are frankly mixed. We're still dealing with long wait times, staffing shortages, and systems that don't always work together. So the real question is, who's actually delivering measurable impact? Well, at RSNA and beyond, GE Healthcare has been making some pretty bold claims about using AI in imaging, and they've been using data to make healthcare more precise, more efficient, and more human. So to unpack what that actually looks like in practice, I had the chance to sit down with Roland Rott. He's the CEO and president of imaging at GE Healthcare. We talk about how their strategies translate into the real world, how they actually improve outcomes for clinicians, patients, and health systems as a whole. I also had the chance to ask him where GE Healthcare is going next. Let's get to it. Well, Roland, welcome to the program.
Well, hello, John. Thanks for having me. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, it's really great to have you here. I'm excited. Thank you for joining us from overseas. I know you're very, very busy, so really appreciate that. Um, maybe if you can, just for the sake of our audience who doesn't know you, if you can just introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, so happy to. So my name is Roland Rott. I'm CEO and president of imaging in GE Healthcare. I am actually 15 years with the company. I've enjoyed a life in technology, if you will, ever since. Have a digital upbringing in the world of software, and for the last 15 years, I had various roles in GE Healthcare, leading up to being the imaging leader for the company.
That's great. Well, thank you and welcome again. I mean, GE Healthcare is such a storied name in healthcare and in healthcare technology. I mean, I still remember the days when GE had an EHR. I mean, that's how long ago it was. But of course, GE has been a giant in imaging for a long time. But can you just sort of give me the lay of the land? Is what areas of healthcare is GE really focused on these days?
Yeah. So as you rightfully say, GE Healthcare has been in the space for a long time. In fact, it's more than 125 years. Can you imagine? So it goes all the way back to the early days of imaging when the only technology was X-ray, for example. So GE Healthcare has been around. And, over these 125 years, we have obviously changed our focus over time. But what we are truly doing today is to make healthcare, more precise, more efficient, and more human. So we are aligning all our business activities towards those angles. We also call it precision health. So we want to be a leader in precision healthcare and make sure that every patient has the most, individualized, the most specific ultimate treatment and diagnosis, and we ultimately improve patient outcomes. So this is what we do. And we do that through smart devices, smart medical devices. So everything, in the context of medical devices from MR and CT all the way to ultrasound and mammography. We do that through digital solutions, which are, aligned to disease areas and disease focus areas such as oncology, cardiology, and neurology. So it's these three pillars which define our strategy today.
And it's interesting you're saying to make it more human because of course, technology, the pace of technology is changing. And it hasn't always been the case where the humanity aspect of healthcare is being put front and center. But you, as GE Healthcare, have put it front and center. And so I want to ask you, when you say to make it more human, are you saying you're making it more human for the clinicians, the patients, all of the above?
Well, we definitely have both physicians and patients in mind in everything we do. First of all, the impact on healthcare is on patients. And when we say more human, we do believe, besides all the good technology which we are delivering, it's ultimately for one single purpose. It's to improve that outcome, to make sure that a patient has, the earliest possible diagnosis in the case of, disease, has clarity on the options to be treated, has effective treatment, and is monitored. So we innovate with our patient outcomes in mind, first and foremost. But then who is providing that healthcare? It's healthcare professionals. And when we say human for healthcare professionals, really about appreciating also what they have to deal with. There's a lot of burden on healthcare professionals these days, and to make their lives, easier and to ultimately make them effective treating patients well is really what gets us up every day.
Now, Roland, I have to ask you this because you sit at the head of a global organization. You see healthcare across many countries, many technologies. When you look at the healthcare industry, is there a technology, or where do you see basically healthcare technology heading in the next couple of years?
Yeah. Look, I would say generally there are a lot of challenges globally in healthcare, no matter in the United States, in Europe, many other places. Big challenges are that first of all, there are not enough physicians, right? There is a big demand for healthcare, and there is a shortage of staff, of technologists, of people who can provide quality healthcare is one factor. The other one is obviously access to healthcare, which is not a given for many people in our world, and all that for a price that healthcare can be affordable, right? Both for public system and private system. So these major challenges exist. And then, what are key solutions to that is, as mentioned, is smarter devices, for example. When we think about the possibilities we have with AI today to make medical devices smarter, those medical devices aligned to certain disease areas and leveraging all the data which is existing, we can provide solutions which are really tackling all these challenges. So the more efficient for the user using them, providing more access to patients, and really ultimately do all that while being cost efficient as well for the healthcare systems. So we believe in the next couple of years, there will be continued investments for smarter solutions, for solutions which are more connected, which make sure, a patient experience is really not interrupted in a silo way as it has been for so long, but is much more seamless through an entire, call it patient journey, because that way it's not only more efficient, but it also promises to get to the best outcome.
Yeah, like we saw evidence of that, or I saw evidence of that at the recent RSNA. I mean, I got a chance to look at one of your products that was basically looking at the DICOM data to help organizations discover where appointments could be shrunk or need to be increased based on the scan that was being done or based on the patient that was being seen. And more often than not, you could actually shrink the time. You needed less time than you booked for the appointment. And therefore, to your point, it opens up more access to more people and by making that organization more efficient. And it was only possible because your device is capable of capturing that data, surfacing that data, and then analyzing it in that manner.
Right. I mean, there's an interesting data point which we learned that 97% of all healthcare data, in fact, has been unused until recently. So there's so much data being generated, but a lot of the data is not even used. And when I talk about AI, one beauty of AI is that it is able to ultimately also deal with large amounts of data, and we can actually apply smarter solutions for various challenges. One can be workflow optimization, right? To ultimately make sure, again, more patients can be handled in the same given time, or that the operators don't waste their time with doing unnecessary tasks. So we have been very active in that field to optimize systems and make smarter workflows. The other piece being on the clinical side, right? Helping physicians to get to confident insights in the time they have. And confident insight really means they are not only relying on their experience, but they get markers, for example, saying, watch this or watch that, that could be not normal. So tools like that can really make the lives of physicians much easier. And at the same time, as said, improve the operational efficiency.
Roland, there's a lot of promise, no doubt, for AI in healthcare, uh, and or for any technology. And AI just happens to be the most recent one. But to me, it's not a technology challenge that we face in healthcare. I mean, the technology can do all this stuff. We can analyze the 97% of data that you just mentioned,
Right.
but yet we don't roll it out. There's an acceptance problem. So what do we need to do as an industry to make sure we realize the promise of all this wonderful technology that companies like GE Healthcare are coming out with?
Yeah. So first, let me actually confirm that we have been doubling down on AI quite substantially. We have been, working together with customers to embrace AI and say, how does it make sense to use AI in the context of radiology? And that got us to having the largest number of medical devices now in the industry with embedded AI being cleared by the FDA, more than 110 such devices. So when you look at these examples, each and every one of these applications actually has a very clear value proposition. So it really takes either an operational or a clinical challenge. And with the help of AI, actually, we make it clear to the user how they can either save some time or get to some confidence faster. So as we have been doing that for some time now, we have just experienced at RSNA, there is tremendous interest and actually growing trust and openness from practitioners, but also healthcare systems to say, without that, I cannot imagine anymore to run my operation because I cannot afford not to save time, or I cannot afford not to give my users the tools which really make them deal with all these patients faster. So I do see, and we get a lot of feedback that there is increased openness. There is absolutely, desire for having high quality, contemporary tools. And this is exactly what we provide.
But I think what's key in what you said there, Roland, is that you're demonstrating value at every step, right? You're showing that by implementing these advanced technologies that it's going to make a difference, and therefore the trust is built in those technologies. Because right, without that, I think that you run into a brick wall of people are just not going to trust a black box that is recommending something. You're showing that actually those recommendations can result in meaningful improvements.
Right. I give you a concrete example in the field of MR, right? So MR is a modality which is obviously very important, very much in demand. Long wait times, like 4, 6, 8 weeks for patients to wait. We created some deep learning reconstruction capability called AirRecon DL some years back, and that allowed simply to shorten that exam time by up to 50%. So meaning instead of a 40-minute full exam, all of a sudden it's only a 20-minute or maybe 15-minute full exam. So that has a direct impact in how many patients can ultimately get to an MR, right? It is cost efficient and actually drives some higher patient throughput. But even if you think about the patient itself, to be 40 minutes in a system, or if you're only 15 to 20, makes a huge difference from a patient experience standpoint. So these are some tangible examples where technology can really provide a big difference. And as soon as that is clear, then we see rapid adoption. In the case of AirRecon DL, huge adoption throughout our customer base.
Well, you mentioned, I want to pick up on something you mentioned before, Roland, that you mentioned you collaborate very closely with your customers. And I know recently you announced a big collaboration with one of your customers, the Mayo Clinic, for something was called, I think it's called Gemini RT. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so let me expand a bit further. With Mayo Clinic, we have actually a flagship, if you will, research partnership for several years. So we are actually having several pillars in this partnership, also to envision, future possibilities in medical diagnostics, such as with MR and CT. And we recently have advanced it towards radiation therapy and advanced cancer care. So as both Mayo Clinic as well as GE Healthcare, we are both passionate about, oncology and advancing the possibilities for cancer care. We are looking, to work together to develop a more personalized therapy plan so that ultimately the insights we get through imaging can inform the precise plan specific for each patient. And with the advanced possibilities we now have in molecular imaging as well as in radiation therapy, that can help to get to most effective, cancer treatment options. Ultimately improve outcomes. So we are passionate about that extension of our collaboration with Mayo Clinic, and we look forward to further, outcomes of that research alliance.
I'm looking forward to covering that whenever you have more announcements on it. But on that line of thinking, how can we foster more partnerships like the one you've forged with Mayo, but between
Mhm.
all the different players in healthcare, like between vendors like yourself, even payers, of course, clinicians and providers, like what ingredients do you feel have to come to play in order to foster more of this kind of collaboration?
Yeah, I think one piece really has to do with aligning the incentives, right, around creating value. And as these models are shifting, also reimbursements models are shifting from pure volume-based to value-based care. I think this is a great foundation to have our incentives aligned, that we are saying it doesn't matter anymore just the volume, it really needs to improve the outcome. So that is something where payers and where regulators obviously play a big role. I think where we come into play as an industry is to create co-creation sort of frameworks, and this is what G Healthcare is doing. We offer these partnership with some of these selected top of the list research parties, as well as with some other industry players, and we do go into collaborations. I could mention some clinical partners like Mayo Clinic or Stanford. I can also mention, technology partners like NVIDIA and AWS, which we are partnering with. And in all that, it's about collaborating towards creating solutions that really make a bigger difference for healthcare providers.
Roland, I mean, given your international portfolio, we don't often get a chance to kind of hear about some of the things that are happening outside of the US and Canada where we're focused. Are there interesting things that you're working on in other countries that you're hoping to, or that you would love our audience to know about?
Look, I think one benefit of G Healthcare being a global player, right? We have been active all over the world for a long time, and we are covered with solutions in more than 150 countries. We probably reach more than 1 billion patients every single year. So if you think about that, it's a very humbling position, but it allows us really to appreciate all the challenges also which we find in the world. And a lot of these challenges relate again to access to healthcare, the cost of healthcare, and even having the some right access to these tools at the right time. So what it helps us do is to innovate for all these different stages of development of certain healthcare systems. So may it be an emerging world where it really matters that we have a first possibility to give them some equipment of a decent capability, or to really design lower cost solutions, which in that sense create more access. The benefit of all that is that ultimately we take all our experience together and we truly innovate for the world.
I love it. I love it. And when you look across your portfolio right now, Roland, is there anything that you're working on at GE Healthcare that has you excited?
Well, look, I'm excited certainly about the broad portfolio of G Healthcare, simply because, as I said, not one size doesn't fit all, and we have a broad range from the most ultra premium kind of devices. I will talk about that, for example, deep silicon photon counting CT, all the way to the entry level, a handheld ultrasound device, which could fit in anyone's pocket and you can take to any place in the world, or you have while you carry it on an intercontinental flight. So I'm excited about the breadth of the portfolio, which is a unique factor in itself. But specific to these days, we just launched at RSNA some true flagship innovations. We introduced deep silicon photon counting CT, a development which was long anticipated. We chose an approach based on silicon, which is an industry first, and that allows us to create a CT system with unprecedented capabilities. So creating, the most spatial and spectral resolution, high quality and high image quality images in one scan, with about 50 times the data processed compared to a conventional CT. So the possibilities of such a system going forward will really be unprecedented from a standpoint of delineating, certain lesions and structures, to identifying what is exactly there in the body. Could be a cancer, could be something else, or assist in complex treatment cases. So a very exciting piece of technology. I'm also excited about the breadth of the portfolio when it comes to embracing AI. I mentioned more than 110 medical devices are today, AI enabled and FDA cleared of GE Healthcare, and we keep building on that notion. For example, a recent innovation was a mammography system, which is also deep learning enabled, meaning deep learning, image reconstruction, and that ultimately, creates a unique possibility to do tomosynthesis. Yeah, again, with the lowest patient radiation dose we have ever seen. So a lot of exciting innovations, which are just at the right time now to make a big difference again.
Well, I love hearing about those things. And you're right. I mean, right, we are dealing with a radiologist shortage. We don't have enough people. So it sounds like a lot of your technologies are really designed to make sure we you acknowledge that's the reality that we're operating in. So looking forward to seeing those at future RSNAs. But Ron, let me end by asking you this question. If you could sit down right now with a hospital CEO or a CIO at a health system, what message would you like to give them?
Look, I would say, first of all, we really make an effort to understand the challenges they are dealing with, and we are mapping those challenges to solutions. And actually, we have been quite successful, demonstrating that. If you look at some of these very large agreements, which we were able to secure this year, like Sutter Health, at more than $1 billion worth of agreement over 7 to 10 years, just to name one. So we are able to demonstrate that we can provide differentiated value, especially also for larger healthcare systems. And that really tackles both the operational and the clinical improvements such a partnership can provide. So again, I would pledge for this partnership. I would pledge for the fact that the new G Healthcare, since we are spun out of General Electric, is more agile than ever before. In fact, we invest more in R&D than ever before. It's more than $3 billion since the year 2022, and that ultimately yields to innovations which are really making a difference.
Roland, well, final question for you. Where can people go to learn more about GE Healthcare?
Well, first of all our channels from starting from the homepage like ghealthcare.com. You find us on LinkedIn, very active, posts about G. You find us on Instagram. You can also follow me personally on LinkedIn. We post obviously our newest developments. So I'd love people to reach out to stay connected and really see, what difference and what limits we can overcome together in healthcare, because we are getting up every day to create a world where healthcare has no limits.
Well, Roland, it's been fantastic having you on the program. Thank you so much for your time. It's really been enjoyable.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, and all the best.